In this video, I want to talk to you about what image streaming feels like. So my name is Jonah. I am someone with aphantasia, which means I have a blank mind's eye, or at least I did, because I learned about image streaming, which is a visualization and imagination practice. And I've taught myself how to visualize, and I am leaning into it very heavily. Now, I put a video on this channel about a month ago, and you can watch that to give you some base understanding for what this is. And I thought I would do a follow-up and share with you what the experience sounds like, what it feels like, and some of the actual experiences that I've had in the past month that have been, frankly, very powerful. And maybe this video can be a little bit of encouragement and something to model if you want to try this out for yourself. So the basic idea, and again, I'm not exactly sure how to teach it, so bear with me. I'm going to try to keep things as brief as possible, is that you close your eyes and you wait for any sort of changes in the visual field that you see. In the Cure Aphantasia subreddit, they describe it as, you have the black of your eyes, and then you have this light noise that's kind of fluctuating. And this becomes very evident when you're about to fall asleep, even if you have aphantasia, with the hypnagogic visuals, okay? The kind of swirling colors as you're about to fall asleep on the blacks of your eyes. Now, this type of visualization that I'm doing is what they call autogogic visuals. That's not like a real coined term. That's something that somebody came up with on Reddit, but fair enough. It's very similar, I would feel, to the hypnagogic state. So I think that's where they're taking the name from. And it actually is on the blacks of your eyes. So it's not the same as normal visualization. Now, I don't know what this experience is like if you really know how to visualize well, because I don't, and I'm learning how to do it. So I can't really speak to that experience, but I can speak to the experience as a whole because I'm starting to understand how to do this a lot better. And I want to give you some kind of demos and things to model in this video. So in the past month, I got the original book, The Einstein Factor. And if you want to learn how to image stream, this is the book to get, okay? Now, if you have aphantasia, it's only so helpful for you. There are some strategies and stuff, which I'll go over in a separate video someday. But you could, of course, go into the book and read those yourself about how to get those visuals started if you have aphantasia. But I've worked through that process a couple years ago, and I've been doing it on and off, and I've been going really hard in the past month. And I will say that my visualization ability, when I start every session, every day, starts off at like my visuals at a 0 or a 1. And I find that this is a state that you only really get to if you're relaxed enough. So I usually begin by doing some deep breathing. So I do, this is something that I've learned from David G, meditation teacher. Very, very, very simple. So I do 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out through your nose. And you just keep going. You don't have any breaks. And as you go through it, in and out and in and out, you're trying to lower the amount of air that you're breathing in and exhaling. So it is the kind of breath work that really calms me down. I'm sure you can really do anything, but this is very similar to the velvety smooth breathing technique that is in this book. So I think that's totally fine. In the Cure Aphantasia subreddit, they described this as you need to turn the autogogic screen on. And I actually kind of like that. The original creator of image streaming doesn't refer to it in any sort of way, like you have to turn the sense on, but actually like it because it kind of primes you like, oh, I'm not going to see visuals in the first couple minutes. You have to get the screen going, okay? And then maybe as you become more developed, you will see visuals sooner, but that's not the expectation. And so that's what I start with. I start with, a minute or two of breathing. If this was totally new to me, I might do 10 minutes of breathing, okay? And I have a very relaxed gaze. And then I start seeing kind of shifts in my visual field. And then I start describing those shifts. And in the beginning, they start off with just like a blob of light, okay? And I'll have to say like, okay, that blob of light that I saw is a curtain. And this curtain is, and this is where the magic happens because your mind has to associate that curtain to some place. It could be a fantastical place. It could be a memory that you've had in the past. And this is where I think it can be really powerful, okay? And I'll get to that in a little bit. But so you see this curtain and you're like, okay, so this curtain is in a house. Okay. It's in, it's in a house and there is there's a wallpaper, and you start describing the wallpaper, and then you start describing the table that's in the house, and then you try to turn your vision or whatever, and like you are rotating. And so you'll find that the more that you do this, your visuals will get more and more intense, and they will get more vivid. They will have more 3D depth. They will have more color, and they will start changing faster. Because at the beginning, you start off describing one scene, but if you see something totally different, the goal is to not continue to describe that one scene. You're supposed to switch to the new scene, switch to the new images that you're seeing. So the experience ends up where you're like building out a scene and building out maybe a little bit of a storyline, and all of a sudden you see something different, and then you have to immediately shift to that different image and then start building out that scene and that storyline. And it leads to this incredible ability for your brain to really process things at a fast speed. The initial pitch of image streaming was that it was going to increase your intelligence. I don't like that, because I don't feel like that's the biggest benefit that I get out of it. But yeah, it is making me smarter. It's making me more verbally fluent. Okay, because really what I'm doing every day in my image streaming sessions is this really intense, fast verbal fluency exercise. Okay, so the idea is you're describing things, you're associating them. If you see a new image, you have to describe the new image. You could stay on the old image, like you could ignore those visuals, but the more that you do that, the less the visuals will get more vivid and more interesting. So the more that you change, the more vivid it gets. Now, I've been doing this a lot in the past month, and I've had some just incredible things that started out very kind of mundane. I couldn't really figure out what it was. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm an American, and all of a sudden I'm like in a British pub in the 1800s, and everyone's wearing period clothing, and someone's handing me a drink, and then I drink it in my visuals, and I'm actually starting to taste something. I'm like, holy crap, that's amazing. And because I can't do that. I can't simulate taste or simulate sounds or any of that kind of stuff. I'm a musician, and I can't hear a song in my head, but people tell me that they can, right? I can't. But with image streaming, I'm getting there. I'm like getting a taste of it. Now, what I want to do for you today is I want to read to you a passage in the Einstein Factor, where the co-author of the book is going over his firsthand experience of an image streaming session. I want you to hear this, and then I'm going to explain two experiences of mine and tell you, what they were like and what I was getting from them, and hopefully you'll be able to use this to model it, to try this on your own. So I'm going to start by reading the part in the Einstein Factor. Okay, so this is the co-author of the book going through and documenting an image streaming session. Now, this is written in a total stream of consciousness, which is what it is, probably using like a voice recorder that was transcribed. So some of the things, some of the sentence structures are a little bit weird, so bear with me. And there might be a word or two that I can't pronounce in here, so just, I'm aware, okay? All right, so I'm going to read this now. I see a kind of background of greenish, yellow, fuzzy spots, like the spots of a jaguar or a cheetah, all over a black background, shimmering, and I move closer to them and they get bigger. I'm zooming in on them, and the spots are getting bigger. The black spaces are in between, and I see that it is indeed like the fur of a jaguar. I reach out my hand, and I can touch it, and I feel the smoothness against my hand. I can see the cheetah's head. It's really a cheetah, not a jaguar. They're the spots of a cheetah. It turns to me and I can touch its head. I could feel its ears and their floppiness, their rubbery floppiness, and I feel the drool of its mouth, and I stroke it all over its head, and it looks at me, regards me warily, not warily, but in an accepting way, as if I'm part of a cheetah family. And it looks out over the savannah, perhaps looking for game, and we're on the African savannah. The trees are very sparse, and I can look out and there's a waterhole out there with zebra and wildebeest and a bright sunlit scene, a grassland that stretches out over the horizon. The wind is very hot against my skin, and I feel at one with the cheetah. We're together. We belong together, and I'm not a stranger in this place. We're hunters together, surveying the herds that are out there, and I'm just feeling the wind. It's very hot. It's high noon, I think, in tropical Africa. And the sun is very severe. It's burning in the sky. I can't look at it because it's too bright. It's almost directly above us, and it's just burning and blazing. It's so bright, and the sky doesn't really look blue. It's kind of a sickish yellow. And right here, he writes that the scene kind of breaks, and so something else kind of starts up afterwards. The wind and sun and the great expanse looking out, and I find an aha. I don't find an answer to my question. My question, of course, is to how to best approach the writing of my book. And I think of that. The sky seems to open. A great figure, a man, I think. I can't tell if it's a man or a woman. It's a woman with dark hair and a bodice, her hair tied up in a fashion, dressed in a fashion that evokes for me Renaissance Italy. Her hair is dark. She looks Italian. She's middle-aged, I think. I think one of the family name, I can't pronounce it, perhaps, or one of the great Renaissance families of Italy, and she's one of them. Royalty, perhaps, a countess. And she looks at me with very piercing eyes. I can smell the perfume that wafts from her, the scent in her hair. I don't know what to call it, but it's a basic scent of frankincense, something old and unsophisticated, something that would have existed in that day. And behind her is a room. She's still standing with her hands pushed back between the torn edges of the sky from which she emerged. And behind her is a room, and it's musty in the room. I'm going into the room, and the air is musty and close, very warm. There are beakers and flasks and bottles, and there's an alchemist's kiln, an amphor, I'm not sure how to say that, made of brick. And there's a fire. It's glowing very hot, and the hot wind blasts me, and I'm sweating because it's so hot. It was hot in the African savannah, and it's hot in this room, very hot and close. And I look down into the fire. I look deep into it, and I see a baby, almost like an embryo, curled up within the fire, and I know it's giving birth to something, of course, but what's in the fire? I look at the baby. It looks more and more like an embryo as I look. The sweat is pouring down my face, and I feel that it's purging me and that the poisons are leaving my body as they pour out of me, and I can smell the burning fire. I can smell the fire as it heats the brick, a pungent smell, and I can hear it roaring within. I can hear the power of furious heat inside of it. As I look deep into the hot part where it's burning, it's all glowing orange and bright. And purplish flashes dart through it, and I see something like a ball, a purplish ball. It's like a crystal ball, and I've decided that I'm going to do a thresholding technique, for when the ball bursts open, the answer lies within it. It's glowing black and gnarly, and it's seething like an egg, like a reptilian egg with something in it. It bursts, and of course, a dragon, a black dragon in typical medieval form with wings, and it stretches its wings and it flies. It flies out from the earth off into space, flies out into the galaxy, into the solar system, between the planets, and I'm riding on its back out into deep space. Now, there's a couple of things I want to point out here. So, number one, and you'll notice this if you watch my last video, the goal here is not to just describe images. That's a very simplistic version of this, but you're really supposed to explain all of the senses that you are experiencing, like temperature, touch of things, physical things like you're sweating or something like that. And the idea is that we're trying to broaden our neurological contact with the image stream. And I got to say, in my experience, this works. Yeah, it does work. I will say that it has helped me kind of start to imagine some tastes a little bit. And I can imagine some feelings of things a little bit. And I didn't have these senses at all. And I've actually been able to hear something a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. And these are things that are developing. But the more that I speak in this way, and you're supposed to speak out loud when you do it, the more that I speak in this way, I do find that at least the images get more and more vivid as I continue to speak and describe all of my sense data, not just my visuals. I mean, visuals are the one that you're going to probably rely on the most, but you know, it's like if you see a block, I'm going to do it right now. I see a block of ice, okay, and I touch the ice and it's cold, and you're just really supposed to lean into whatever you see. And when I close my eyes, did I kind of see a block of ice? Yeah, I saw like kind of something that looks like a cube, and my mind is just like, that's a block of ice. Now, being able to quickly associate things like that is hard. I've been working on this a lot this past month. It's hard. you have to get out of your own way and be able to just kind of speak without judging yourself. And one thing else that you'll notice in this is that the scene changes, right? Like, oh, this is a jaguar. Oh, now it's actually a cheetah. Oh, I'm in Africa. All of a sudden, a woman's ripping herself in from the sky, and she's in Renaissance Italian garb. And then I'm in an alchemist's, lab, and there's different things, and there's a furnace, and it's constantly changing like this. It's very, very interesting. And I've gotten just some crazy ones. Like I have, so I've been taking notes. So I'm also trying unsuccessfully to learn how to lucid dream. And I use this app called Dream Viewer. Okay. Anyways, I'm using an app to record dreams, and it allows you to put pictures and generate AI images. And I've been doing that. Okay. So every time I finish an image streaming session, as soon as I get a really clear, crisp image, I turn it into a picture by talking to ChatGPT or Midjourney, and I write my experience down in this app, and it just works really well for that purpose. And you can like rate things in terms of vividness. So I'm just trying to keep track of these kinds of things. So I'm just going to scroll through my phone and talk to you about some of the experiences that I've had, how they've started, all of that kind of stuff. So, okay, so here's one experience, and I'll put the picture on the screen. It started off where I was, I'm just kind of reading through. I was starting in a room, and there was like ivy and stuff on the walls, and there was this like gold trim. And then I dropped through a hole in the floor. Like I looked down and there was a hole, and then I felt myself falling. Like in real life, I felt myself falling, which is crazy. And then all of a sudden, I'm sitting on like the inside of a tree. Like if you imagine a big tree and there's all these branches, and I'm inside, that thing kind of shrouded in some shadow, and I have an orange in my hand. I never eat oranges, so interesting. And I'm peeling the orange and seeing all that different texture underneath, and I just take a big juicy bite of an orange, and I'm like, huh, that was amazing. As soon as I open my eyes, right? And that's the end of the experience, It was really cool. It was just a really interesting feeling. Here's another one. I'll put the picture on the screen. This was one where I started off like imagining that I was in some sort of like American pharmacy, like a Walgreens or something like that. And I go and I grab a beer out of a refrigerator, and all of a sudden I realize that I'm not in that Walgreens anymore. I am in like late 1800s London, outside of a pub. And I go into the pub, and I see this really cute like ginger girl who's the bartender, and she hands me a drink, and some guy's next to me, and I'm like speaking out loud what these people are saying. And I'm like, where the hell is this stuff coming from? It's coming from my brain, obviously, but it was just fascinating, like having a conversation with myself. Seems a little slightly schizophrenic. I'm not. Totally perfectly fine. The cool thing about this is if it gets too weird, you just stop. So that was pretty cool. Here's another one that I did this, and all of the sudden, I am back in a memory of a friend and me who were in Bushwick in New York, and we're like wandering around, and we found this like flea market that we went into, and I just had all this images of me picking up random things on shelves and looking at it and messing with them and putting on coats. And I saw a woman like with long hair, and she was like, her hair was like falling, and I could feel all the little strands of hair. And for some reason I find the very textural things like hair and I don't know, like reaching my hand into a bowl of like grains or something. Those kind of things just really get my brain going, and the extent of the visuals really increases. And then it was just scene after scene that just started like, there was a secret back room in this place which didn't exist. And then I was just, coming up with all of these different things, and I go into this back room, and there's like a bunch of people performing music and neon lights everywhere, and I'm seeing this, and it's so vivid and so crisp. And granted, I've lived my whole life without the ability to visualize, and this is like amazing. And then eventually I just stop, and I'm like, wow, that was incredible. And I go to ChatGPT, and I make an image, and I keep moving, and that's the end of the experience. Let me tell you about another one. Oh, this was fantastic. So I run another YouTube channel. I teach harmonica on the internet as well as other things. And I also used to do a podcast in the past. And so I was having a conversation with my mom that was like, yeah, if I get back into podcasting, I know that I would really crush it. Okay. I know that I'd be like really amazing. And right after that conversation, I started image streaming. And I see kind of going off of the thresholding idea that he goes over in this book. And it was mentioned in that demo stream that I talked through earlier, which is you create like a closed door or something like a closed, something that needs to be opened. Okay. And then you open it, sometimes fast, at random, surprise yourself. Because if you know it's going to open, you might open it and there's nothing. But if you do it fast enough and your image streaming is deep enough, the contact you have with it is deep enough, that your brain will show you something. Okay. And so I was like, I'm going to try this. And so I see like these like kind of stone walls, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to describe something. I'm going to do something that I heard in the book. And there's like vines and flowers in front of a door. And that was something he said to, like, just to increase that neurological contact with the smells and the feeling of stuff. And so I imagine all of this stuff, and I'm looking at a door, and it's a wooden door with a golden trim, and it has all these ivy and flowers and stuff on the side. And I reach for the handle, and I remember I tried to surprise myself. I opened it really, really quickly, and all of a sudden there was a black room, and there's a pedestal, and on the pedestal there was a microphone. Remember, I was just having this conversation about podcasting, and I pick up the microphone, and on it was a dagger that was being pierced through a rose. And I'm like, what is that? What does that mean? And I don't want to tell you the name that I settled on because I don't want any of y'all to steal it. But I took this image, and I'm like, that's the name for this thing. If I ever start a podcast, that's it. Okay. And I was like, wow, there's something to this experience. This is pretty amazing. Another one, this was the next day. I had an image stream where I get a lot of, when I close my eyes, I get a lot of swirling kind of things, especially when my image stream is starting. It's kind of like a swirl like that, like a swirl. And my brain was like, oh, without me, really thinking about it consciously, oh, this is a planetarium that I went in when I was like 7 years old, something like that. Immediately, I'm just like, oh yeah, planetarium. Yeah, I'm in a planetarium. And I remember this was a very impactful experience to me. It really changed my perspective on the world, because I was, a dumb little kid. And as dumb little kids do, you're like, oh, the world is so much bigger and all this kind of stuff, right? So anyways, go through the planetarium. And I'm sitting here, and I can't really tell if I'm in my adult body or a little kid body. It wasn't really clear. And I'm looking up at the stars, and I see all the different planets in the planetarium, and I start zooming into them and seeing all of this detail, and my mind is like blown. I'm like, this is freaking incredible. I just start feeling all of these feelings that I had when I was a little kid. This very impactful memory. It must have been, because I still remember it. And actually, I remember because it was the night of, I remember reading in a science book. I went to this planetarium, and I was like, I got to get a book on space. I want to learn about this. And so I was reading through the book that the sun was going to explode in like billions of years. And I remember reading that and being like, oh no, this is all going to go away. And I had that feeling again when I was image streaming. It's like my brain just pulled open that folder of memory and was like, that's the one. And so I was like, wow, this is really powerful. And I can't believe I remembered that. I mean, I really, before, with Aphantasia, I don't really have like solid memories. I have a very vague storyline maybe, but I can't just like, imagine memories. And there I was imagining a memory, slightly changed, of course, from when I was a little kid going through this planetarium in like, first grade or something like that. And after the experience, because it changes very quickly right after that, I'm in a child's bedroom, and I see on a little table there is a golden egg in this really fancy like golden holder for a golden egg. And I look at the golden egg, and I like reach out for it, and then all of a sudden the egg cracks, and out from the egg bursts this beautiful red phoenix. Beautiful red phoenix flies out of the egg, stretches its wings, flies towards the window in the bedroom. And as soon as it got to the window, it burst into flames. I'd be like, whoa, what? What does that mean? What does that mean? And then I look back at the egg, and the egg is whole again. I'm like, what? Okay. And so I try to reach out to it again, and all of a sudden the egg cracks. And a different phoenix this time, pretty much the same one, but there were some slight differences. Flies out of the egg, stretches its wings, flies to another window, and bursts into flames. And this just kept going on, one after another, after another, after another. Now, I don't know what that means. I feel like you have to kind of get in the realm of dream interpretation or something like that to really process that truly, but it was profound. I knew it was profound. I mean, I didn't have all the details, but I was like, wow, this is pretty incredible. And, I've had a lot of moments since then, really interesting ones. I'll share a couple pictures on the screen here now of things that I've seen. And some of these images are really pretty identical to what I was seeing. But the vividness of an image in a picture isn't exactly going to convey the scene, because sometimes the visuals are like not nearly that good. There may be like a 3 out of 5. Like, I can see the shape of things. It's a little wobbly, but I can see the shape of things, but I know what it is. Like, I 100% know, oh, yeah, that's a woman with wings sprouting out of her back flying over Times Square in Manhattan. Okay? I'm just like, boom, I got it. Like, that's what that is. But the details are not always there. But the longer that I go on a stream, the details get more and more pronounced, and to the point where there was a couple days where I did it for like maybe 2 hours. Like, I was really into it. And I usually do it these days listening to music, and I've been experimenting with different kinds of music. Anything that's very textural or very meditative. Like, I've been listening to a lot of sleep music on Spotify, and that's been helping towards the evening. And anyways, I'm listening to this music, and I'm having these experiences, and I did it for a really long time. And then I'm laying in bed, and I'm just seeing like psychedelic geometry. It's the best way I could describe it, like like columns that are twisting in on and of itself. And I see a lot of octopuses and squids, like a lot of like tentacles and stuff like that. But it was so vivid, like more vivid than I've ever seen anything in waking life. And that's possible in this state. But I got to say, I don't get that every single time. I get that sometimes. And when I do, it's a real treat. And I find that it's almost completely correlated to the fact that, am I doing it every day? And how long have I gone in one session? Because any session that I start out, it's kind of for about 5 minutes. But then after, 10, 15, 20 minutes, past a half an hour, it's just incredible. And so that's what my recent image streaming experiences have been like. I know that there's a lot here. A lot of these thoughts are not so worked out, but again, this is very new to me. I don't really know how to talk through this stuff, but I just feel like it would be fun for me to share my experiences, and hopefully you learn something about it, and you'll have a better idea on how to try this yourself, or maybe understand like how, if your experiences are different than mine, or very similar, or whatever, So that's it. That's what I've learned about image streaming in the past month, and I hope it's been helpful. Peace.